Hello and welcome to the Not a Guru podcast. I'm one of your podcast hosts, Tyler Smith, certified athletic trainer, certified strength and conditioning specialist. I'm also here alongside the prestigious Dr. Heidi Cook. We are here to help you with personal development, personal growth, and really building a foundation that lasts you your whole life. We're so excited you're here today, and let's jump in.
Howdy ho.
Can I tell you, I was still laughing at your sweatshirt right now, just because
It's
uh,
it's my
it's,
favorite sweatshirt.
are you gonna tell everyone what it is, or should I tell them?
Go ahead.
It's MILF in cookies. So
Milk and cookies.
MILF in cookies, which made me laugh today.
Yes, you're welcome. Sam bought me this when I was super pregnant. And it is like a crop sweatshirt. And so it just like sit on top of my belly.
Belly.
But yes, I forget sometimes that like it's a funny saying on it. And when Cal was like, I don't know, maybe a month old, I was going for walks around the neighborhood and or I guess so it must have been he must have been a little bit older because school had like just started for like the schools in our area, and I'd go for a walk kind of around the time that the kids were getting picked up from the bus stop. And I remember one morning I forgot I was wearing this, and I was walking with Cal in the stroller, and this whole school bus of kids were like pointing and laughing. And I was like, what am I like? What the heck is going on? Like, why am I being laughed at by an entire busload of kids right now? And it turns out I forgot I was wearing my MILF and Cookies sweatshirt. So, anyways, glad it could bring a smile to your face. It brings one to mine every day.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it.
How are we doing this week?
Ooh, that's a loaded question this week.
Yeah.
And I think the reason, like, it's not that anything's bad. It's just, so this is, I mean, we haven't recorded since before
Before the
Christmas, huh?
before the
Before the
holidays.
holidays. So, quick recap, because I'm sure you guys don't want to hear it all. Really good holiday season.
Yeah.
Two Christmases. Little known fact that if you have a person in the house that works night shifts at a hospital, Santa can make some adjustments and come early because
Yes.
it just has to happen.
Yeah.
So we had like a family one, and then we had another one on the actual holiday, but we kind of buffered in between. Got a great opportunity to go to the Fiesta Bowl with work.
Yeah.
The game didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, but
Was
um,
it super fun?
it was. My brother lives down there, so got to go see him and all my nephews and his wife, and then we hung out on his birthday. We were like there
Mhm.
on his birthday, so that was cool. But it was just like a really cool, fun, quick trip, and
Yeah.
then came back, and I just feel like since then it's just been complete like 0 to 100 as fast as it can possibly go. We started practice this week, but we don't have a school, so it's kind of like one of those quasi like camp weeks where coaches try to fill every second of every minute of every day with practices or activities or team building or meals. And so I think both myself and my coworker Abigail are just it's week one, and it's been like a pretty busy week, and it's just like you're trying to catch up. You got new athletes, you've got all these people coming back at one time, um, who don't communicate well. So when they come back, all the things that have gone wrong that they didn't tell you about are surfacing. So um, it's not that it's been bad. It just feels like you're in the ocean, and like every time you get your head up, another wave just crashes back, and hits you again. And then you're kind of just exhausted. I was telling someone today, I was like, what day is it today? And they're like, it's Thursday. And I was like, oh, it's only Thursday. This week feels like it has been, that we have stuff. My nights have just been kind of busier than normal too, with different things on my plate, with board meetings and calls and, everything you're doing. It's just like you just zonk at the pillow every night. So, but
Yeah.
It'll be good. Won't last forever. We'll get into it. And next week school starts. Um, for me, school started for Quentin already, but that kind of puts you in a little bit better groove and you can kind of get your footing and stuff. So
Yeah. Back
how was
into it.
everything for you? How was the holidays and the whole shebang?
Holidays were good. Christmas was spent at Sam's folks in Wyoming. So that was really fun. Cal's first Christmas.
That's
Um,
okay.
Side note, I'm totally gonna out this on the podcast. I'm, and I feel like I want to tell the whole story, but I also need to give some context. Otherwise, it's just abuse. But Sam punched me in the face on Christmas Eve
Wow.
in his sleep. So like, okay, quick quick story. So it's so bad. Like my face was swollen and bruised for like a
Oh
week.
no.
He like full punched me. Like it wasn't like a little, like it was like full. Anyways, pretty sure I was like concussed on Christmas. Um, it was like Cal's first Christmas, also the Christmas that Dad punched Mom in
The
the face.
dad punched mom in the face.
So Sam's a pretty like heavy sleeper, and sometimes if he's on his back, not all the time, sometimes he will snore. When he's snoring really loud, I usually just like
Push him.
tap his arm or like shake him a little bit and tell him you're snoring, roll over.
They're nicer than Lindsay. Lindsay just pushes me over. She's like, you're snoring and just push it.
He'll roll over and then like he won't have any memory of that in the morning. Like he won't even remember that that happened. Okay. So we're sharing a room with Cal. Cal's in the room with us because we're at Sam's parents' house. And Sam's sister and brother-in-law and their two kids are there too. So like it's, full house. I go to like shake Sam because he's snoring really loud and like Cal is like starting to like stir and like cry a little bit. And so I like tapped him and then he was like not rolling over. So I like shook his arm. He sat up really fast and was like, whoa, 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 what? And literally took his hand on the back of my neck and shoved my head into the pillow. And I was like trying to like fight back because I'm like about to be suffocated. And I think the like struggle of like me trying to fight back and Sam still being like asleep, he thought that he was like being attacked. And he full blown, I like turn over and I'm like, what the heck? And as I turn over, he just goes, boom. And he literally makes full contact. I am so thankful that I turned my head because he ended up punching me like right, like on my like cheekbone, like right in front of my ear,
Yeah.
instead of like in the
It's just
eye,
like
in
ringing.
the
Yeah.
nose. But he woke up like as his fist made contact with my face. And he was like, oh my God. And he like hugged me and he was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Cal's crying. It was Merry Christmas.
Did anyone else wake up during this whole catastrophe?
No,
You're good.
nobody heard it, which I'm very thankful for because we were sharing a wall with the toddler. Um, anyways, uh it was like in retrospect it was hilarious. In the moment it was not the craziest thing though. Like after it was happening or after it happened we were laying there and Sam was like, my heart is literally beating out of my chest, like I thought that I was like being attacked. And then like the realization that I just punched my wife in the face. And then he was like, he kept looking at the door and like rubbing his hand, looking at the door and rubbing his hand. He was like, it doesn't feel real, like it doesn't, he's like, am I still dreaming? And I was like, get away from me. Like I was scared that he was gonna like start strangling me because he thought he was still dreaming. Because he was like, my hand doesn't, he just kept saying over and over, my hand doesn't hurt. If if I punched you in real life, my hand would hurt. And I was like, bitch, my face can tell you that you punched me for real.
Like, really? Because it feels really real on this end of what happened.
Exactly. I was like, this is crazy. Anyways, so Merry Christmas to
Merry-
me. Um, that one we will, outside of it being Cal's first Christmas, it will also be memorable for them. So,
the the
uh,
incident Christmas. Yeah.
yes. We had a great Christmas. Um, people were kind of sick off and on. Um, Cal was like on the back end of being sick. Um, and yeah, so but it was, 'tis the season for all of that. And I think overall it was a really great Christmas. And then we came home for like 4 days, and then we got on a plane and flew to Washington to see my family and did like a second Christmas. And my sister came into town with her kids, and then we got back from that at the beginning of this week. And so and everybody there was sick too. So it's just like
Everyone was
uh,
just sick all over the place.
yeah, just really building Cal's immune system.
I was gonna say I'm not far behind you guys. We went to the bowl game and Quentin was sick, and then Lindsay got sick, and now I got sick. So
Oh, love how that happens.
yeah, just
Um, but yeah, it was good holiday. Good holidays overall. And New Year's we were, just classic new parents. We were in bed by 11 o'clock.
no. We had to stay up because Quentin wanted to stay up for the New Year's because it was after the bowl game, and like it was not. I don't know. Like I told Lindsay before we went, I was like, it's either going to be crazy at the hotel because we were staying at the same hotel as the players. I
Yeah.
was like, it's either going to be crazy because we just won a bowl game and they're going
Yeah.
to be, or it's going to be somewhat somber and we didn't win. So it was not crazy, but Quentin's like, we got to stay up. 11:05, we turn around and he's like on the side, just cold. And I was like, so he's not staying up. So
Glad we stayed up till 11.
yes, I'm glad. Well, I stayed up till midnight. I was
Oh,
like, well, I'm staying up.
yeah, now that I'm
So
up. That's so funny.
yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad you had a good holiday. Hope everybody listening had a good holiday season as well. Um, yeah, I'm excited to get into today just because it's kind of top of mind. We had a coaching call with our MBA crew last night, and this was definitely a topic of conversation, whether it was labeled this or not. Um, we'll get into it, but I really wanted to talk about the idea of imposter syndrome specifically, um, whether that is um, in business, whether that is in your career, or whether that is in, you building and executing on um, healthy habits, health promoting behaviors, those types of things, how imposter syndrome really can, prevent us from moving forward, but then also how to address it specifically instead of just, talking about it. Because I feel like we can talk about it until we're blue in the face. I think pretty much everybody has experienced imposter syndrome in some way, shape, or form in some pocket of their life at some point. But I don't feel like there's a lot of like strategies to address the imposter syndrome other than like fake it till you make it almost is like what I feel like the narrative is out there. And we can get into this as we go on, but like while I am in some ways a like fake it till you make it fan, I don't like that saying.
All
Like
right.
I don't like the like fake it. I kind of like more so the idea around like do it do it while you're uncomfortable,
Right.
and as you continue to do it you will become more comfortable, right? Or the threshold for discomfort will just raise and you can continue to move forward. But like the fake it piece, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking about it in too much depth. But like the fake it till you make it, I think that can get pretty like disingenuine,
Yeah.
whatever. not genuine.
Not genuine,
uh, and
disgenuine.
can get like, I don't know, like almost like a cookie cutter version of yourself because you're almost faking it or like showing up or pretending to be something that you're not. And I think that's like a whole nother issue that it ends up building out because you end up showing up as somebody who you think you should be because you're faking it until you make it instead of showing up authentically, whether you feel confident to do so or not.
Well, and I think the thing I really like about this, and imposter syndrome kind of got, I think, labeled a lot in the business world because it's like you're in some new role, you've started something, and your confidence is not real high, or you don't have a lot of experience, and so you kind of get this emotion where, how am I supposed to tell people what to do if I don't have the experience or if I'm not really the expertise on this? But I think it kind of transcends to everyone because we've all been in situations where we're trying something new, we're starting new patterns or behaviors, and you get this feeling like, what am I doing? Like, why am I
Mm-hmm.
like, this is not me. This is not something I'm comfortable with. It's almost like this really weird, icky, like, what am I doing feeling?
Mm-hmm.
And like business has labeled it as the imposter syndrome, but I think we've all can relate to any part of our lives where it's like you get in a new environment or something new and you just don't, it doesn't feel familiar. It doesn't feel like you know what you're doing. It doesn't feel like you belong. And then
Mm-hmm.
that uncomfortableness like kind of washes over you and then you freeze, you get out of the situation or you don't know how to handle it. So you're absolutely right is like one of those strategies, the fake it till you make it. I do think has a like not a I always say it as a joke because
Yeah.
you're like yeah, it's just what I do. But at the same time, it's one of those things where you're gaining confidence and I think that's where it came from is like just fake it till you actually know what's going on. Like you can,
Yeah.
but at the same
Figure
time,
it
it
out as
doesn't
you go,
work.
kind
Like
of.
that sitting in that uncomfortableness and that not knowing and lack of confidence can sometimes work it the other way. Like some people can't fake it. They can't just be
Yeah.
in there. So getting strategies or understanding kind of the whole concept and where we come from, I think helps people understand like, okay, wait a minute. This is one, I think one of the biggest things I've seen about this, and this is why I'm not saying I haven't gone through it. We've all gone through it, but I don't let it affect me as much as because I understand that everyone in the world has probably gone through this at some point in their life. Like you've been in a situation where you're over your head or like knew something and you're just like, but I think at the same time, you and I have both gone on this journey enough for growth and development where you understand that that's part of the process and like it's uncomfortable and it's sticky, but like I'm not, I don't want to say I'm still uncomfortable, but I understand that I'm going to be uncomfortable and I just got to sit in it and find a way out.
Yeah. And like, I think where the fake it piece, like, I don't love is the like pretending like you know or pretending that you have all the answers when you don't, and then that getting in your own way to like actually move forward or execute or do it well. And then we end up just getting stuck like pretending or like being scared to be vulnerable and ask the appropriate
Yeah.
questions in order to get to a place where you can do what you need to do effectively, right? And so I think, well, let's start here. Where in your life have you experienced imposter syndrome specifically? Like, can you think back to a time?
I think there was a couple times. I think probably one of the biggest ones is when I made a jump very early in my career from like assistant to an associate, and I was one of the few there. Because you're in charge of a group of people and you're not used to the leadership skills, so you kind of don't know. Like I was a leader,
Yeah.
but I was like, I don't. No one's taught me how to be a leader. No one's like mapped it out for me. So you're just learning as you go. But to
Mm-hmm.
your point, I made a very conscious effort to be humble in the situation because like I'm not afraid to say I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm with you on that. If you to fake it till the make it, or you make it translates into a false confidence, and you not being able to admit, shortcomings, lack of information, or being able to be authentic and transparent with people. It kind of comes off as a little bit like cocky, conceited, or like you're putting on a bravado to mask all that. So I think that is one, and probably another one where I don't know if it was imposter, but just the whole overcoming like the uncomfortableness was probably when we started working with a lot of the stuff we're doing now, and just jumping in and knowing I've worked with a lot of people, I have a lot of skill sets, but it's just something entirely different than what is my in my wheelhouse. And it set me outside of a group of humans that, like, I'm used to working with Division 1 athletes that, have very little outside influences in their lives, are very driven, very, like, don't
Mhm.
have, for lack of a better term, like, life hasn't really hit them a lot.
Yeah.
And so the information I was able to give was more narrow and more focused. But then you get with people who have kids and lives and everything, and
Mhm.
lots of backgrounds, and it just got it,
It gets messier.
it gets messy, and you're just like, I can't tell you the amount of times Heidi and I have talked and like grown together after calls, just like, what do we do in this situation? What do we do here? What do we like? Like, we just kind of look at each other, and there are sometimes we feel like we knock it out of the park, and there are
Mhm.
times that we looked at each other and just laughed or said, like, I did we get something accomplished right there? Because I don't know
Yeah.
if we did. We
I don't
both
think we did.
Yeah, we both gave great information, but it either maybe was not said in a way that resonated with the person, or the person wasn't ready to hear it, or didn't want to hear it, or was just
Or it
not.
was outside of our scope,
Yeah,
right? Like
or it was stuff that
what
where
they're dealing with.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is sometimes, yeah, the problems would expand to a place where, but that's where you have to be able to also. It would have been easy for us to fake it and be like, no, you should do this, or like give this information, because we're both highly educated. We've read a lot of books. We've read a lot of studies, and it's easy to say like, well, I read this, but like that's a small narrative and to understand that we have that small narrative, and that we need to stir the conversation back to what we can help with, I think really helped in that situation.
Yeah, 100%. I think I guess where there is like a fine line, I think, with the fake it till you make it piece. I'm thinking back to like when I started taking my first patients in the clinic and like, feeling like an autonomy with that, but then also getting to a point where like, and I think you can kind of expand this concept to other things, but I remember, if there was somebody who was presenting to me with something that was like, an injury or something, some ailment, right? That was unfamiliar to me in the moment, instead of losing the like trust piece with that client who's like putting their trust in me to care for them and make clinical decisions that are going to help get them better, right? I remember that first appointment, you know getting to a point where I would have like a pretty good idea of where we needed to go, but like maybe I didn't know off the top of my head the exact like CPG for this particular condition, right? And so instead of being like, let me look this up, or whatever, and like feeling like wishy-washy or wavering, moving forward with confidence and giving them, some things to do that are certainly not going to hurt, can really only help, are maybe not the most specific and effective things, but also knowing that like I get another shot with them. If this is a Tuesday, I get another shot with them on Thursday. And between Tuesday and Thursday, you bet your ass I'm reading everything there needs that I need to know, that I need to learn to effectively treat this person. So it was almost like, that imposter syndrome can come up when you're presented with something that like makes you question your knowledge, your ability to do a good job, your ability to treat, somebody at a high level. But like slowing down and just like, telling yourself it's okay that I don't know everything right now. I'm going to do the best that I can for this individual with confidence, right? Knowing that I'm not doing anything to hurt them, harm them, or, whatever. And, rounding out that appointment, knowing that like I get to see them again in 2 days and I can, come better prepared now that I have a clear picture of like what's going on. I think that concept helped me a lot in other areas as well. So like that imposter syndrome isn't like debilitating or crushing to where I'd be like, I don't know what to do. I've never seen, I've never treated a patient that's dealing with this before. And like losing my head over it and losing the trust and relationship with that particular patient. So like there is somewhat of not a false confidence, but just like a confidence that maybe I don't know everything right now, but I will, right?
Sure.
Like there's that piece. And that concept has definitely been a thread that has like allowed me to show up with confidence when I don't have everything figured out. So it's like, how can I show up confidently even though I don't know everything, but also knowing it's okay if we don't know everything because we can learn what we need to in order to, you know, show up with more confidence in the future. It's almost like a punt, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like what can I do now with confidence? Learn what I need to learn so that I can come back and like really do it well. And so I think when we're confronted with imposter syndrome, it's often times that we're confronted in a way that like makes us feel really insecure, either insecure in our knowledge, in our insecure in our abilities, insecure in um uh yeah, I guess that's the two main things, our knowledge and our abilities, right? But like whether or not we can, act on those things in the moment or not. Um, I guess just getting to a place where you can do what you need to do in the moment and then like either, you know, confront your abilities and see, okay, what kind of improvement can I make so that I am able to do X, Y, and Z, or go find out what you need to find out so that you can come back to the table with the knowledge that you need to do the job well. And that has been really helpful for me in terms of like not allowing the imposter syndrome to like either shut me down or prevent me from taking action or moving forward. And I think that's the thing with imposter syndrome that we often get stuck on is like, how could I do X, Y, and Z? Or, oh, I don't know enough to do X, Y, and Z. And then it's like this roadblock that prevents us from doing something that we would actually be fully capable of doing. We just haven't been pushed to that place before.
And there's a great example. I have an example, and then I want to ask a question of you because the probably one of the times as we talk through this, and like it is a version of imposter syndrome that I've felt, but I don't know if you want to exactly label it as such, but probably one of those times like just that last phrase where you're like questioning your abilities and your knowledge, and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't know like what to do, or you're nothing has like really for me now that I think about it. I mean, outside of work, um, everyone who might be new doesn't know, my son Quentin is adopted. He was adopted out of Houston, Texas. Probably the biggest, like, exactly your explanation, because I mean, everyone's adoption story is a little bit different, but when you go through the classes and you do the stuff and you get a phone call and you're trying to prep and you're trying to do everything, nothing makes you feel like, oh shit, I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know if I'm ready for this. Like going somewhere, being handed an infant and then saying bye, see you later, and that's like it. Like there's no like, for a vast majority of people, there was no 9 month period. There's no like clock countdown. It was just like happened. Here you go. keep this thing alive, see you bye. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, like all those thoughts that you said, like came rushing in. We're like, I don't know if I know how to do this. Like someone just handed me a child and what do I do now? Like you read books, but at the same time, you just test your ability a little bit every day and you can do it. But at the same time, I can't tell you like when that whole situation, like how many times you feel blessed, you feel great, and then you feel scared shitless because you don't really know what's coming next, what the next step is, what you're like, you know what you're supposed to do, but it just changes all the time and you're kind of
Yeah.
stuck in it. So, um, the question I had was, I mean, you've been at the cornerstone of like building a business from like the ground up.
Hmm.
And like, how did you deal with that through this whole thing through the process where like you maybe didn't know if what you were doing was like actually what was supposed to like sometimes it was throwing shit on the wall and seeing what sticks.
Hmm.
Sometimes you thought you had it nailed down and you had like this sense of confidence and then you turn around and you're like, nope, that was wrong. That didn't work. So like how did you manage and buffer that like in building and trying to create something that you have a vision for but very little like just know-how as you went through it?
Delusion.
Delusion. Yes.
I
There's
think
your
that
answer for everything.
truthfully, I think I had just like a healthy dose of delusion that like it was all gonna work out, right? Like, uh, did I question it at points? Yes. Does that mean that I was without stress or that I just skipped through building a
No, that's not
business?
true. I can tell everyone that is very much so not true.
Not true at all. But like I think I did just have like this sense of delusion of like if this doesn't work out, something else will, like in terms of like a strategy or, kind of the like throwing spaghetti at a wall type of thing. Like it was never like, oh my God, if this doesn't work out, like I'm a failure. The business is a failure. This is a disaster or whatever. There were times where I said, "Oh, this is a disaster," but it was like, I think just that like healthy dose of delusion of like, okay, that didn't work. What will, and like continuing down that path again with a healthy dose of delusion, or stubbornness, or yeah, I think all of that. But like, I think the times that imposter syndrome have shown up the most is when I'm comparing myself to other people. And I think that is
A good point.
probably a big component for the majority of like, why imposter syndrome exists. We feel like an imposter because we're comparing ourselves against some standard that we believe, right? Like this is what a business owner should do, should be doing, should blah, 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 right? And so like I feel like an imposter if I'm not, falling in line with those things, right? And so like I think the comparison piece, there was a really kind of powerful sentiment that somebody that I worked with um, would often say, and that it was um, if you are more concerned with how you are being perceived than how you are actually being, then you are not being the best version of yourself. And I think that really stuck with me in terms of when I would catch myself in those um, moments of imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to, run a business? Who am I to, you know, I remember like the first group coaching call that we had more than like two people at, like when I very first started to step outside of one-on-one coaching and expanded beyond that. And I sat there and I looked at all these women who were looking at me to help them. And I was just like, oh my God, here we go. And like, while I didn't doubt my abilities to do so, like that voice in the back of your head, it's almost like the little devil on your shoulder of like, are you sure you can do this kind of a thing? But a lot of that came from comparison, right? And so I think, it's easy to say, like, let's eliminate the comparison. But if I can think about the pockets of my life that I feel imposter syndrome the most, it's when I am seeing or comparing myself against other people. And that is when I catch myself and like really have to like actively work against that comparison piece. And then I feel like I can show up with a lot more confidence in what I'm doing. And like a big kind of just, you know, topical for me right now, right, is motherhood, right? And kind of similar to what you were saying, like there is no guidebook. So oftentimes, like, yeah, we are doing what we feel is right for our kids, but at the same time, like sometimes all we have is like the input from others or others' experiences. And so we like look to those for information or for strategies or for, you know, whatever. But sometimes in looking outside of your own little bubble, like I, or in those early months, um, I felt like I was failing because, you know, my kid wouldn't sleep anywhere but on my body, you know? And like I would look at these, you know, parents whose kids were sleeping everywhere, anywhere, could lay them down, could simply set their kid down. I could not set my child down. Um, and like that comparison piece, like I just lost a lot of confidence in that. And I felt like, you know, who am I to be raising this kid? And I always joked that, you know, I'm 31 and feel like a teen mom, you know, like I don't feel responsible enough for this. But all of that to say, like, I think in terms of combating the imposter syndrome that has crept in while building a business, the main thing is trying to eliminate as much as possible. There always is going to be some level of comparison, right? Like just seeing what other business owners are doing or building or, you know, different things, especially in the social media world where like you're constantly kind of evolving how you put your messaging out there based on what is getting eyeballs, you know, when we're talking about like creating content. Um, so there is always going to be some level of comparison, but not allowing that to like derail what I know that I do best, right? And so then when it came to working through all of those things where I didn't know what I was doing, like truthfully, I didn't know how to create a course. I didn't know how to automate emails. I didn't know, like, Sam has always said that like one of my greatest qualities is just my ability to just figure things out. And I just kind of always relied on that skill. It was like, again, almost like punting the can down the road. It's like, okay, if I didn't know how to do this, that's okay. I'm not a failure. I'm not a, you know, my business isn't going to fail. I'm just going to need to figure it out. And if, you know, that's going to take some time. Okay, maybe we're not going to reach this particular deadline that I thought. That's, you know, am I going to beat myself up over that? Probably in the shower later, but I'm not going to let it prevent me from moving forward because I don't know how to do this thing. It was just like, we're going to do it. And like, if you look back at the very first reel I ever made, did I think it was a Picasso, a work of art in the moment? Yeah. You know, it's like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm a genius. This reel is amazing. And I look back on it now and I'm just like, oh, tough. Uh, but like, you know, your first version of something is never going to be, I think a big way that I've combated the imposter syndrome is just to like let go of this idea that like I need to be some guru or whatever, right? Like I can just almost not a guru, our whole freaking podcast. Like you can literally just figure it out and like allow yourself to be messy, allow yourself to make mistakes. Like I've made mistakes with clients, in front of clients, with my team. And yeah, would it be better if those mistakes didn't happen? Probably, you know,
Probably, maybe,
but
yeah.
maybe, probably, yes. But at the same time, like, eh, is that better than not building the business at all because I'm scared to make those mistakes or I feel like, you know, I'm not a real business owner if I'm making mistakes like that? No, because like this business has helped so many people, right? And so, like, allowing it to be messy, allowing it to not feel like you have to be something that you're not. And I am never going to be this like super polished business owner. I'm sitting
Right.
here recording our podcast in a Milk and Cookies sweatshirt. Like, let's get real. And
Classy.
I think letting go of that, and that took a lot of time for me to get to that place. And I will tell you right now, not to get preachy, that is literally when the business took off, is when I stopped trying to be some. This is like where I don't like the fake it till you make it piece, because when I stopped trying to be what I thought a doctor business owner needed to be, and just started being myself and helping people how I wanted to help them, that is 100% when the business took off. And so, like, was I still confronted with bits of imposter syndrome along the way? Sure. But like, I held and felt so much more imposter syndrome when I was trying to be, when I was trying to fake it till I made it and trying to be this, you know, super accomplished, polished business person. And that's just never who I will be ever, you know?
Well, and sorry, excuse me. I think one thing that I saw the other day that I just wanted to add to that on the comparison thing, which was so true, and I've never really looked at it this way. But how many times, like, honestly, this is kind of rhetorical, but you can answer. Do you like watch a movie and then look at that movie and be like, my life sucks because it's not like that movie? Or do you take the context of it's a movie that's not real. So I'm not really going to compare my life to that movie, right?
Yeah. Like, my relationship is not a rom-com,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And
But
like, I wouldn't expect it to be.
here's a question, and I think it begs a lot of validity. If we can make that distinction that a lot of it is not real, it's just, like unless we're watching like bits of a documentary, it's
Mhm.
not real. Why do we look at this as any different? I'm holding up a phone
Mhm.
than a movie. Like
Yeah.
if Heidi is bringing up something just for a comparison, and I'd never thought about this, like it's not real. Heidi is, let's say she has a reel where she's sleeping and then wakes up and her makeup's perfect and her hair's there and she goes through this morning like, no, it's not real. She had to set up a camera, she had to put up lights, she had to like she does all this stuff and like too many times like we let that be our standard and that's why we don't feel like we belong.
Yeah.
When we're letting like I don't want to say lies, but things that aren't real dictate how we feel.
Yeah.
Like it's not real. Like, I mean, some of it, I mean, I would give you a lot of credit where most of the stuff you put on is authentic and real, and that's who you are. And that's, but most people don't. And it's just like
Yeah.
this big flat lie that we're like comparing or saying, I'm not as good as, or I need to look like this, or this person, looks this way when they're not really telling you the truth. And
Yeah.
sometimes, like, that's a good buffer when you do feel like imposter syndrome is like, don't compare yourselves to the movies. Just because it's on your phone doesn't make it real. It doesn't mean that's what life is for this person. I mean, you could go through, I can make a collage and a collection that makes my life look like sunshine, rainbows, candy canes, and I live the most luxurious, wonderful life. But like, that's not true. It's not telling the whole story. So just always, I saw that and and this guy was like, am I nuts? Like, does no one else in the world understand that like your phone isn't reality? Stop checking in with it and thinking that it always is.
Yeah.
Um, but sometimes, if that's what's hooking you on imposter syndrome or feeling uncomfortable is I don't want to go to the gym because I follow this one girl and she has matching outfits and she wears makeup and she's great. And like, I don't belong. That's not who I am. Like, that's not real. It's not
Yeah.
a real gym. Like, Heidi could be posting pictures of her next to Lamborghinis and like making this business look like it is, something it's not, but it's not real. And so you have to find those people that can allow you to be like comfortable in that and understand that most of it is like a half truth or something that is not entirely what is in front of you.
Yeah. 100%. I think like you nailed it. I think and I said we were going to get into like, addressing the imposter syndrome specifically, and where we were talking about it with our students was, when we're feeling that insecurity, when we're feeling that imposter syndrome, whatever it is, really getting down to what is it that makes you feel like either you don't belong, or that what you're doing isn't good enough or isn't as good as somebody else who's trying to do the same thing or whatever. Like, what are those specific feelings and why? And oftentimes when we get into the why, like for me, it was I felt imposter syndrome because I was straight up like thinking that in order to run a business, I had to act a particular way instead of just like leading into my authentic self. Again, like I was worried too much with how I was being perceived versus how I was actually being. And when we can move through that, we can get down into like, okay, now we have the space, now that we're not worried about what everybody's thinking about us. Now we have the space to just figure it out and like get resourceful and do what you need to do in order to feel confident in that space. And so addressing what is it that's making me feel insecure. Oftentimes it's going to come back to comparison to somebody else, feeling that the only way to do something is how somebody else is doing it. Or maybe it's I don't have enough knowledge or information, or maybe it's I haven't done it enough times in order to feel confident. Okay, now that we have a clearer picture as to why we're feeling insecure about this particular thing, we can then go address that specific problem. If it's because of a lack of knowledge, go learn. If it's because of a lack of repetitions, go get more repetitions. If it's because of comparison, how can we eliminate, that comparison, unfollow the account, block out the noise, get really hyper specific on what you are doing, what you are building, instead of what everybody else is doing, right? Like we can start to address the specific problem that's leading to the imposter syndrome. And so if you're feeling really stuck, like you can't move forward because you are feeling like an imposter in the whatever space you're in, I'd challenge you to get a little bit more hyper specific on what is leading to that kind of imposter feeling. And then we can address that specifically. There's a really cool book. I'm trying to see it on the shelf so I can see the author. Oh my gosh, I know it's like right there. I can't see it. The book is called Everything is Figure Outable. It's a great, great book.
Is that a word?
And
Figure outable?
nope. Uh, do you think she gives a shit? No.
No.
Um, goodness, it's gonna drive me nuts. Anyways, I don't know the author's name. Great book, and it is just like an encouragement to like show up show up underprepared, do take the leap when you don't feel, fully ready. Like there's never going to be a perfect time. There's, it's never going to be perfect. Be okay with, doing things imperfectly, but like also know that you can just figure it out. It kind of comes back to that same sentiment about, when I was seeing patients in the clinic and like almost like punting and giving myself the space to figure it out so that I could come back with more confidence.
It's Marie for Forleo. That's
Borello,
Forello. Yes. I wanted to look that up to make sure.
something like that. Okay. Great book. Highly recommend.
I would say yes. The only thing that always gets me, I agree with 99% of everything. The only thing that I always have a caveat with, and I'll get on my soapbox for 2 seconds, is I believe in authenticity is a great way to express yourself. But please always come from like a place of caring, concern, and respect and love for other people. Because the one thing I don't like, and not that we do it, I hate it when people come from a place of like anger and kind of being an asshole. And they're like, if you don't like me, take it or leave it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Always make
That
the world a better place. That's just my pitch, my spiel, because I feel like some people do that and they're just like, yeah, I'm just being authentically myself. And I'm like, this sounds terrible. If you're authentically an asshole, maybe you should look at yourself and
maybe
change.
yeah,
Maybe
maybe
we
you
should
should change a
change
little
that
bit.
a little bit. Maybe we should not do that because that's not, what I mean. But yes, you're absolutely correct on all that. That just makes me laugh.
Authenticity is not a license to be an asshole.
Asshole. Yeah, that's our shtick now.
Yeah,
Authenticity is not an excuse to be an asshole. Um,
100%.
no, but I agree with everything. That always just makes me laugh because I've sometimes that pops up a little bit, and that is like one of those things, where you have things that like get under your skin. Where like I'm just authentically being myself, and I'm like, no, that doesn't give you a pass to be an asshole to someone. Like that's not how life works.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say on like building uh confidence, combating imposter syndrome, like truthfully, the only thing that's going to get you through feeling like an imposter is doing the thing.
Yeah,
And once
very
you've
true.
done the thing, you don't feel like an imposter anymore. Like there might still be some of that imposter syndrome showing up, but like the only way to work through it is doing it, right? Like you will continue to feel like an imposter if you don't get resourceful, figure out what you need to figure out in order to do the thing. If I wanted to become a business owner and felt like an imposter and felt like I couldn't do it, and then just like did all of these little things around it because I was too scared to actually go do the thing, I would still feel like an imposter, right? But like it takes getting uncomfortable, making mistakes, doing things that you don't know how to do and allowing yourself the space to figure them out in order to not feel like an imposter anymore. And
Yeah,
like,
what was the stat? Is it how many failures? Is it 11 or something like that? 11 failures till we find most people hit failure 11, 7, 11, 13. I don't know, times
yeah, something like that.
before
Yeah.
they hit their idea, their jackpot, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I, I, I like to think that I built a great business and I just like often think to myself, like, 31 years old, there's a lot of road and a lot of mistakes and a lot of shit to continue to navigate through, like the best and the worst I'm sure is still ahead.
yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully that was helpful overall. It was just kind of top of mind for us because of what we were talking about yesterday with some of our clients. And I think it's a commonality uh, for a lot of people, kind of regardless of what your career is. But I think is also just a common thread of what prevents people from doing something that they're, really passionate about for no reason other than, getting in your own way. And
Yeah.
so, hopefully that was helpful and made you think a little bit about maybe where you are getting in your own way and, stopping yourself from doing something that you are fully capable of doing and figuring out, even if it's messy at first.
I was going to say, yeah, whether it's life, business, kids, parent, wherever you want to look, it's going to show up at some point. And hopefully you can listen to this and just gain some confidence and some understanding and a little bit more clarity as far as, that you can make it through, that we've all gone through this, that if you're listening to us, you obviously have a connection with us in some point and that we've all gone through it and that you're not alone. And that if you just ask questions and keep moving forward, you'll find a way to get it done.
100%. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and see you guys next week.
Thanks for being here.